My name's Dom, I'm a campaigner at the RSPB, and I'm doing this presentation with Glyn.
And I'm Glyn from, well, We Could Even and Root Cause Collective. I'm wearing my We Could Even hat for this presentation, and this is something that Joe Derry Hall and I both worked on with RSPB.
So this is a customizable action that the RSPB created with We Could Even. We're really proud of it, so really happy to share it today. I'm just going to talk through some of the strategic thinking we had going in and some of the objectives and why we decided to go with the approach we did. And then I'll hand over to Glyn, who'll talk about how all the magic happens, and then we'll go back into the issues we had and the results of the action itself. Just a quick overview. We teed up We Could Even. It's an e-action using the e-card functionality and enabled supporters to basically create a personalised email to their MP. This was back in September of last year, so it was just after the general election. We had a lot of new MPs, so we were really keen to do something engaging and something different. So we had thousands of people last year take part in our general election e-action, which was quite a broad ask. We just asked people to contact their candidates and let them know that nature means a lot to them and that it needs to be part of their work in Parliament if they were to get elected. So it was a broad ask, it was a pro forma email to target action that we asked everyone to do. So we had a situation where, following on from that, we had a lot of new MPs and a lot of new supporters and a planning bill on the way. It was quite a quiet period after the general election. We had recess, but we knew that this planning bill was going to come, and we knew it would be monumental for nature and for wildlife, for birds, and we knew that we wanted to say something about it and get our supporters engaged. So whilst we looked at the pro forma format as a follow-on action following from our general election, since we've already done that, we decided to do something a bit different. While pro forma letters can be useless and are useful, just to be clear, when I say pro forma, I'm talking about sort of pre-written letters we use in e-actions. We decided that personalised letters have a significantly greater impact, but supporters often find that writing them can be time-consuming because they find that they have to know a lot about the subject and that they normally just get put off by them. So we decided to do what we can to create an action that focuses on allowing supporters to engage within the personalisation aspect whilst also being respectful of their time and the fact that they might not know how and what to write about. So our key objectives was to simplify the personalisation process. We really wanted to empower supporters to create messages that really spoke in their voices. MPs want to hear from their constituencies, not from the RSPB all the time. They want to hear what their constituents think, and they want to hear what the issues are that matters to them. So trying to get that level of personalisation from the supporters, it was really the key challenge we had to focus on. We wanted to show as well, obviously, that constituents care about nature. With so many issues that are around today, people can often overlook things like wildlife in pursuit of other areas. So we really wanted to just put wildlife and conservation on the map and show it to their MPs as an issue that they really, really care about. And we wanted to get a way for MPs to read letters, essentially, to make sure that they aren't just getting loads of the same email into their inbox over and over again, and that they're getting something which is different, personalised, and unique. We also took this as an opportunity, the downtime we had during the parliamentary recess, as a time to experiment, to try out what things we could do differently with our standard approach to campaigning. So the action outline we came up with was focusing on planning, but also just broadly on nature. We decided we want to create a system that randomized text for our supporters and allow them to pick the issues that matter to them, and then the text would be generated randomly through that. We kept the language really, really simple because we wanted it to be accessible, but we still had a broad ask at the end of asking people to contact their MP and asking the MP then to go and bring the concerns to the DEFRA Minister. We wanted the audience to be accessible to everyone, so it could be done in 5 minutes, but users can personalize it further if they wanted to, so give that flexibility for them to allow to really engage with the action. I was going to go briefly about how the action itself worked, so I've got some screenshots here and a video following it. So thanks to, again, the wizardry of We Could Even, it was an amazing looking action, really, really accessible. So standard, you put in your address, it would find your MP. You then get the option of what do you care about, and you would pick one of the 6 key subjects. You can see there we had variety, and we tried to spread that out as much as possible. So you would pick one of the options. You would then get some generative text. You'd then go into a second, more specific couple of options, which would be related to your first option. So if you were, for instance, to go back, you were to pick clean rivers and seas. That's something I, as a supporter, really care about. You would then get further options to pick, okay, so what about rivers and seas do you really, really care about? All of this would result in a generative lot of text, which would basically write your email for you to your MP in a unique way that picks up on all of the aspects that you picked as a supporter. So basically, it's written the email for you. And then the final action, many people who have used the eCard functionality, which is what we used for this, is that you then have to go into your emails in order to send that to the MP, because there would be a personalized photo that goes alongside it, because we wanted to do something that was really, really different, which we're going to touch on in a bit. I think that's everything from me for now, if you want to do.
Yeah, so I'm just going to talk a bit about sort of technically behind the scenes how everything worked and how it looked like in terms of editing the page inside engaging networks. So as Dom mentioned, we used the eCard functionality for a couple of very specific reasons. Partly it was because we wanted to allow for all this level of personalization, which obviously you can do in terms of the text with a normal email to target action, but adding that photo in as well, we needed access to the HTML of the message that goes to MPs and an email to target message that's very locked down, that HTML code. So we use the eCard functionality as a way of being able to incorporate that level of personalization and incorporating a photo as well. And so how it worked is that the built-in eCard form fields that are normally on the page were hidden because obviously normally people are using the eCard functionality to send a birthday card, a Christmas card to friends or relatives and so on. So we're kind of hiding those usual fields. And then based on the choices that Dom just went through on the video and the example there is, those fields are kind of filled in behind the scenes, basically. So a bit more technically, I mean, if anyone wants to know more about this, come and talk to us afterwards. But basically, we built this using the kind of Svelte framework. It's similar to React, which is maybe a bit more well known. And the kind of relevant files are all loaded into the RSPB's template. And we basically, when the first step is the supporter entering their postcode, we use the Engaging Networks API to bring back the name of their constituency, and then got the MP's email address, name, and photo from the Parliament API using that constituency name. And obviously, because we've customized this using the eCard functionality for that photo, but if we weren't using the photo, there's no reason why it's kind of similar kind of interface and way of generating the message to MPs could absolutely work in the same way, just to create the text, basically. And so behind the scenes in Engaging Networks, in the page builder, there are a few code blocks there, obviously, that are loading up some of that customization of the interface. But in general, most of it's just, in this case, it's got usual form fields and text blocks. And then one of the key things we were really keen to make sure is it was really easy for RSPB staff to be able to come in and edit that text at any point of the process. We didn't want people having to go in to mess around with the code and things like that. We, didn't want people to have technical expertise to work on this. So all of the bits of text were really easy to edit just within text blocks. And then the different choices that Dom mentioned as well, they're around depending on which options people chose. You can there was a big text block here with a table essentially, and that kind of first option, protecting places for nature, in the first step then has these 4 or 5 variants of the text in there, which are used on rotation. So if someone in the same constituency sends has the same, makes the exact same choices, they're going to the MP is going to be presented with a completely different message, essentially. And then further kind of another example of sort of clean rivers and seas as the first option. We've kind of got those 4 variations of text there. And then if someone goes on to choose swimming and sailing, there's those 4 or 5 variants of the text as to why that's important to them, which will be included. So it creates a huge number of potential combinations of text that could have ended up being presented to the MP. So hopefully every single message, even if the supporter makes no effort to personally customize it at all, will be completely different.
So, as with all actions, there's always some issues. So, as Glyn touched on, the eCard functionality, whilst we were happy we did it primarily because we wanted to have a photo attached. We had new MPs and new supporters. We thought it would be a nice touch to have a photo attached to the messages themselves. It had some limitations, especially to do with the fact that supporters then had to go off engaging networks and actually go into their emails in order to send the email. That link that got sent to people's emails expired within an hour. I don't know if that's something you want to...
So so basically, it's something that we kind of had a chat with Corin about, and as something that hopefully is kind of on the roadmap to be changed, so that it would be easier to be able to kind of use an e-card action in future for an advocacy campaign like this, so that maybe that could either be extended or not necessary if it's being used for this kind of action.
But that limited the number of people who ended up actually taking the action and ended up actually sending the action to their MPs. I'll go on to the numbers in just a second. But the other issue that this related to was tracking. Because people have to go off engaging networks in order to send the email, it meant that engaging networks didn't track them in the same way as effectively. Luckily, we BCC'd ourselves into every email that got sent. So we had a record of it. We then had to manually upload everyone who actually sent their email up to our system in order to tag them correctly. So that was quite time consuming. And took a lot of effort and sort of reevaluation on how to do it effectively, which obviously boils down to another issue, which it took a lot of time. Although it was a really effective action, we were really happy with it. All those text variations took a while. We enlisted the help of AI, but we still had to check it and go over it and make sure that every combination still sort of flowed together nicely, so it wasn't just a list of sort of, here's a point, here's a point, here's a point. We had to try to be imaginative in the way we could make the messaging and the text flow. And again, there's no direct ask, which is completely our own choice, because we've just done because we just had done an action that was similar. We were a bit concerned that maybe we should try to include one, but it's fine to proceed as long as we had a direct ask on the horizon, which now we do with our current planning campaign. The results we were really happy with. So the end result was 3,200 people ended up actually sending the letter to their MP. 5,000 total people were the numbers that essentially thought that they sent their letter. So of the 5,000 people who went through that process that we went through earlier and then clicked submit, 3,200 of those people actually then went to their emails and sent the letter. And 200 to 300 of those were heavily personalized. So what I mean by that is, again, like we saw in the video, where people actually went in to the text that was automatically generated for them and edited it further. So that was really, really exciting for us, because that was something we weren't expecting. I think we thought that because we had sort of automated the personalization aspect, that people then wouldn't want to go in and personalize it more. And what we actually found was, although we don't have strict numbers on this because we don't track how many people normally personalize their sort of pro forma emails, what we actually found was, this is much higher percentage of people were then going in and making more edits, even though they had this automation of edits. And we think that's down to the fact that these are issues people pick themselves, and people speaking in their own voice, they feel more ownership of that. So they go in and say, okay, well, this is my message, so how am I going to edit this? And it's a lot more accessible than perhaps a longer block of text with policy demands. And also, it relates to you. It says, I care about this, I care about that. So people really wanted to speak with their own voice. So having around 10% of those letters that were sent being additionally personalized. And, we saw all sorts of examples of people saying, in my local area, I'm not happy with this road. In my local area, I'm not happy with this, planning. I'm not happy with the water. I'm not happy with this river. That was really impactful to see, because we knew that the MPs would, newly elected, really keen to do right by their constituents, would read that, and that would make an impact within their work and in their community. And more broadly than that, we just got positive feedback from MPs, NGOs, and supporters, specifically on the action. So we're really happy with that. And it was a really positive step in our now ongoing planning campaign, where we're trying to encourage the government to put nature at the heart of the planning and infrastructure bill. So we're really, really positive first accessible step, and now we've got supporters along the way for what is now a longer campaign. Thank you.
Thank you. I love this campaign. I looked at this myself. Glenn sent it to me, and I was like, this is so cool. It's just so creative. I don't know how you came up with this idea, but what a unique way to use our platform, and really, it really shows you just how flexible we are. You can really do anything, almost, it seems, using an e-card page for an advocacy. I don't know how you came up with that, but very cool. We do have a few questions. So, Carla asks, love this campaign. This must have been so much work. How long did it take you to write all of the different versions of text? Was the creation of the letter a very long process? And I think you touched on this. You mentioned AI, but maybe you just expand a little bit.
A long time. I think the entire process took, we weren't working at every single day, but the entire process took around 6 weeks. I couldn't give you the number of hours it took to actually come up with it, but the most difficult part was making sure that each point that could be picked wasn't too similar to the points that could go either side of it, because then that would mean that it was just it came quite stale and sort of, well, here's a point, here's another point, here's another point. So there was a lot of brainstorming, a lot of mind maps to go into, okay, well, how can we make this flow really, really, really nicely? And, it's never going to be perfect, because we still had instances where there was mistakes, because there's simply so many variations of text. So something like that's never going to be perfect, but we managed to eventually get it, thankfully.
Yeah, and you allowed the supporter to actually customize as they were going. So if they saw something, I guess, that they're like, oh,
Exactly,
this sounds funny to me, maybe I'll adjust this here or there. So that's very cool. This was asked early on, and I'm not sure what it was in reference to, but they asked, could I ask how you recruited these people? Was there paid social?
No, we didn't do paid social. So RSPB, fortunately, is a very big organization, so we have a lot of channels. So these people originally came through from the general election campaign, or most of them came from the general election campaign, but we have a supporter base of around 80,000 active campaigners who take action across the UK, so we send out emails to them, but we didn't use any paid social for it.
Okay. Did you use AI to help analyze the 3,200 sent emails, or did you have someone on the team sort of personally do that?
No. What we did was basically go through them and look at the first and last lines of them to essentially see if there's heavy personalizations. That's why it was an estimation from 200 to 300, because we didn't go through every single one, because obviously that's 3,000 emails. But we basically went through as many as we can, because we had to manually upload it anyway. We went through as many as we can, and just tried to basically spot through human eye which ones had been personalized and which ones hadn't been. We might have been able to use AI for it, but we didn't try that.
Gotcha. Did you have a budget for acquisition?
What is acquisition of?
I don't know.
Like paid social budget.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
No budget.
No.
Okay, great. Okay, so this is a bit technical for Glenn, maybe, but could you maybe expand a little bit on why the email to target page type was not used, and you went with sort of this out of the box idea with the e-cards?
Sure. So basically, the email to target action, you've got the option of a plain text message. So it's plain text, there's no code, there's no HTML. We could have inserted a link to an image in that plain text, for example, but that would require an MP to then click on that link, open that link, and get that message, and get the image then in the browser separately. That wasn't the sort of impact you were looking for with this. The idea was that the MP would have an email in their inbox that looks a bit different, that hopefully has the image there alongside the text. So that was one aspect of it. The other option you've got with the email to target campaign is you can have an HTML message. That is locked down. It's not editable by the supporter. So it was then, it's difficult to customize that so that we could have all those variations of text that are then kind of placed in there and place a potential different image that's going into that. So that was kind of broadly the reason is, and we also had sort of budget and time constraints to work with here. And it's like, what's the simplest option we've got here to do this? And another way of doing it completely would have been to kind of build something completely bespoke that sat outside Engaging Networks and sort of used the Engaging Networks API to do this. That wouldn't have worked in the sort of time frame that we've got. And also that wasn't what you guys really wanted, which is to be able to get in there and make text amends very easily in the normal page builder interface and things like that. So broadly speaking, those are kind of the reasons.
Yeah, and relatedly, someone wants to know, what was the picture of? So how did you make sure the pictures uploaded were appropriate? I don't think they were uploaded photos.
No, they weren't uploaded. They were on that first screen that you saw when the person chose the topic or the theme that they were particularly interested in. It's the image that was within that. So there was kind of a set of 6.
Okay. And those would be
options.
Included in the email to the MP.
Yeah, the one of them, the one that related to the topic or theme they chose was the one that was included.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Have you considered ways to apply this approach if you did have a specific ask of MPs? For example, do you think it would need to differ in any way to remain focused on your core message?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question, because as I mentioned, part of this was an experiment. We took this downtime and we thought, okay, well, we don't have a specific ask at the moment, but we might in the future. So how can we think about planning an action now and the format of an action which can, we can apply later when we really have a specific demand? The answer is we are currently thinking about it, yes. At the moment, for our current planning campaign, we're just using a sort of pro forma standard email to target action. But we definitely did this in a sense of experimentation, and I think we could pretty much use the exact same format we did. We didn't. People might not have seen it, but at the end there of each generative email, there was a standard bit of text which said, "Please relay my concerns to the Secretary of State." So we still tied it together like that, and I think that same format could be used for a future action. It will probably be more difficult. We'd probably need to use AI more. We'd probably need to look at the text more in order to be able to make sure that it flowed nicely. And it's very difficult to talk about specific policy issues and get people to personalize that. So we'd have to make a judgment if it was worth it. How much can we get people to personalize our specific policy issues? But that is definitely something we want to do in the future because of the positive reaction we got from. Yeah.
Great. Going back to the image question, how did the image display? Was it just sent as an attachment alongside the image? And I'm thinking, because you're using the eCard module, you probably had a nice way to mock it up like an eCard, like you would normally get an eCard, right?
Yeah, the eCard has the kind of layout where the kind of image is in the sort of the top of the email and around the background, and the text comes down the middle, I think. So, it was just using that standard layout that's within the eCard module, basically.
Yeah, and relatedly, were you worried about, while you're including an image, would it get caught up in spam? Would it get flagged in a way, Yeah.
That was definitely something we talked about early on, and we did a bit of testing. And I think that one of the things, obviously, sometimes images do get blocked, but and that was kind of, a risk that you were kind of happy to take. But you did. I think I recall you doing a lot of testing initially to make sure.
Yeah, we did test it with MPs before, and we said, have you got this email? And everyone who we tested did.
Great.
So but that was a concern, yeah.
Yeah, great. Do you have any stats on how the results of this campaign compared to previous email to target campaigns, I guess, where you've used the regular email to target tool?
It's a significant lower number of people have actually taken if we're talking about actually sending the email to the MP, then it was a significantly lower number because of that, extra steps people have got to go through. I don't have the exact numbers, but my understanding is it was around 20 to 30% of what would have been if it was just a pro forma. So we're talking about in terms of numbers. So it's a significant decrease, but we thought that was worth it to get this extra element of personalization in.
Yeah, perhaps the letters themselves were more effective, right? So that's the hope. Yeah.
That was our thinking. How effective is it to getting an MP getting the same letter 40 times? For specific campaigns that can be effective, but we thought maybe just one or two more personalized ones has more of an impact at this stage where we're just trying to establish relationships between campaigners and MPs.
Yes. Okay. How are we on time? I think we may have time for one more. We answered that one. Can you imagine the use of AI in the future to tailor or personalize messages? Is this in plan for the EN roadmap? Uh-oh. Who knows the answer to that?
So that's above my pay grade, yeah.
I don't know the answer to that. But
Can I say one thing?
yeah, go for it.
On that was one thing that we actually, I think we proposed initially as a potential way of doing that, is either using something like ChatGPT or something to help modify the messages. And I think we had decided not to do that in the end because you wanted to make sure that the message, at least, a bit more control over making sure the messaging was right and the message was right. But it's, and I think it's probably a good call.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much. This was really interesting. Thank you.